Yeah, try one though. Nice.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I'll go. I'm not getting Nigella though.
No? Who you getting? Gino De Campo? James Martin?
No. Hugh Fernley Whittingstall.
Really? That's your fantasy chef?
Yeah.
Ain't he like a foraging dude?
Yeah. Rummage around my garden any day you like.
Talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
Hello and welcome to episode 323 of the Talk of the Street, an unofficial Coronation Street catch-up podcast that reckons the Institute's sophisticated cybersecurity setup consists of Rowan checking his scent items. I'm Gavin.
And it's Friday the 13th. Ooh.
It is. I was thinking, have we done a podcast on Friday the 13th before? We must have.
Spooky.
No, that's not what Friday the 13th is. That's Halloween.
Yes, but
Friday the 13th is bad luck.
And also spooky.
No, it's not spooky.
It is spooky because
Since when?
Since Michael Myers came out to chop people up.
That's Halloween.
Since the Friday the 13th one. What's his name?
I don't know, Helen, what is his name? Oh no, can you not remember what his name was?
I can't. I know Michael Myers and I know Freddy Krueger. I can't remember the one with the guy.
You mean and it was Jason Voorhees.
Ah, yes, Jason Voorhees.
That wasn't
How could I have
spooky, though.
forgotten? How could I have forgotten? It was spooky when he jumped out of the lake and drowned that girl.
Spooky?
Yeah, because he was all like, his skin was hanging off of him and everything, and
That's
you don't
more-
expect it.
You don't expect it, but that's more gross and surprising
But
than
he's a
spooky.
He's a ghost, so he's spooky.
He's not a ghost.
He is a ghost because he's dead, obviously.
I think he's a zombie.
Is he a zombie? Zombies don't like water.
Ghosts? He's not a ghost. If he was a ghost, he wouldn't kill people.
You don't think ghosts kill people?
I don't think ghosts are real, but if they were, they wouldn't be able to kill people.
You don't think ghosts are real?
They'd be great at walking through walls. Jason Voorhees didn't really walk through walls.
No.
Didn't have a sheet over him.
No.
He had a mask.
But he did kill people and was dead and didn't eat their brains, so he can't be a zombie.
Well, maybe he's just undead then. 2 minutes we've been talking about this.
Vampire then? No, because he doesn't suck the blood. And he's not charming and handsome. Because vampires have to be charming and handsome, except for Nosferatu. And he just has like long nails and a pointy nose because
I feel like we're
anti-Semitism.
riffing down a dead end here.
Anyway,
There we go.
happy Friday the 13th, my darling.
Happy the Friday the 13th of the Friday.
How is your luck been all day?
It was pretty poor because Benny ate my fucking lunch.
He ate your lunch?
Mm-hmm.
What
I
did you
was not happy.
What did you have for lunch?
Nothing. Because Benny ate my lunch. You may remember that bit of the
No,
story.
but what did he eat that was your lunch?
Oh, he ate my fried rice from last night. You're looking at me like you've had some say in this.
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay.
I'm just thinking that he must have still had some orange chicken left.
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Kids.
I don't know. He eats a lot now that he's like a college soccer player instead of just a high school soccer player.
Yeah, he'll do that one more time and then that'll be the last time. How have you been?
Good.
I wouldn't have minded.
If he had asked.
No, because I would have said absolutely not.
Uh-huh.
It was fried rice from the good Chinese that I drove half an hour to get
Yeah.
and then half an hour back.
The good Chinese
That's
who
my favourite
actually
fried
know
rice.
how to cook tofu.
Yeah.
Not everybody does.
Anyway, not that I'm hung up on this.
No.
Oh,
No, not at
furious.
all. Did you tell him you were furious?
Yeah.
And what did he say?
He said, "Oh shit." Still didn't say sorry.
Isn't that young adult for sorry?
I don't think so. Anyway, how are you?
Yeah, all right. Working on a new auction.
Yep. Auction talk.
Did some guitars today. Not nice guitars.
Oh, how much did that piece of shit Warlock guitar go for?
Oh, it's still up. That auction is currently running. So if you're interested in the Warlock guitar, Gav will post the link on Twitter later.
Yeah, you won't check this. So, sure.
Yeah, it's up to like $65, I think. So, but it's early days. So, we are going to start when we have these the dual platform auctions, like the rare book one that ran last week that you remember I was really stressed out about.
I do.
We're going to start doing audio for it, and I'm going to be one of the people on the mic,
Audio
would you
for it?
believe?
What does that mean?
Like, you know, we do the webcast. You know how, like, when I worked at the other place, my boss would be on the mic and you could hear him talking about the things and then calling out how much they were. We're going to start doing that.
Oh.
Only won't be quite so blah, 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 because
You can't do that.
right. And my current boss can't do that either. So, but yeah, so that'll be fun. That'll be exciting.
There you go.
You know how much I like to talk about stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a Fozzie Bear cookie jar in the auction currently. That's at $70. So it's currently beating out the Warlock guitar.
I think that's to be expected. Shall we preamble, my dear?
Yes, please.
Give us some of that Corrie news.
Congrats to Peter Ash on winning the National Television Award for Serial Drama Performance.
Congratulations indeed.
Well earned and well received.
This is like 18 months worth of work,
Yeah.
pretty much. Mm-hmm. It started like a year and a half ago when he got knocked down on his bike, or on Peter's bike.
On Peter's bike. And then he got up again.
So it's a lot of work.
A lot of work, absolutely.
Well, a lot of shades that he had to go through as the story progressed. Yeah, I don't think there was much in the way of doubt that he was going to pick this up. So
Seriously.
congratulations, though, indeed.
Yes, and happy trails. As one of our favorites leaves, another returns as Sarah Khan returns to work from maternity leave.
Is that her maternity leave up already? God.
Yeah. She had the baby in April.
Has she been out for that long?
So
Doesn't seem like that.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, if she was here in America, she would have been back in June. So
Yeah, probably.
yes. She seems to be happy to be back at work, and we are happy to have her. I have missed Alia. Have you missed Alia?
I have, and we kind of left her on perhaps the cusp of something with Adam.
Yeah. And yet maybe she might have competition for Adam now.
So it seems,
Maybe.
if we're good at spotting this kind of thing.
Yes. Of course, we spotted this kind of thing before Alia and Adam became a thing. So, who knows? We'll see. And finally, sad news as Kenneth Cope, who played Jed Stone on the show in the 60s and then again in 2008, has died at the age of 93. So, our thoughts are with his family.
Absolutely.
Yes. And that's Corrie News.
A sad note to end our Corrie news on, perhaps, but let's try and raise the spirits again as we sail ever so smoothly into the feedback section that I like to call Everyone's a Critic. Debbie on Spotify wrote, and I think this is a suggestion more than a piece of feedback, but she says quite simply, Caulk talk?
What did she say?
Caulk talk. Not cock talk.
Not cock talk. Caulk?
Caulk talk.
Like caulking your bathtub?
Which I presume she's suggesting a section of our Coronation Street podcast to be talking about home improvements? Or waterproofing? I'm all for it.
Yeah. We're not very good at it, though.
Then Daisy writes, I've been bought many things over the past 4-ish years of my Corrie love, a Talk of the Street book, not by us. Mm-hmm. That's about Corrie language. 2 board games, 5 mugs, a spin-off romance novel, and a recipe book. Everything is outdated. So shall we make one? My only caveat is that AI Oliver needs to feature. I spend all week getting through the shows just to listen to you each week. Thank you for your service. Do you have an address I can send something to? Well, funny you should mention that.
Because guess what we did this week?
We were going to do this anyway, but
We've been talking about it for like a few years now.
Daisy's email was the kick up the backside to get me to nip down to the post office, and now we do have a P.O. box.
We do.
If you want to get in touch with us through old-fashioned means.
Mm-hmm. And Coronation Street, if you want to finally send us our fucking free Roy Cropper t-shirts.
Yep. Let's not forget about that. We now have an address in which you can do that.
Yes.
You can send it to The Talk of the Street, P.O. Box 12, Eaton Rapids, Michigan, 48827.
Ah.
It's quite exciting, isn't it?
It is.
I don't have the combination for our P.O. Box yet.
Is it a combination?
It's a combination one.
It's not a key?
It's not a key. She said, come back later. I said, well, I'll come back tomorrow. She said, come back later. So she's a feisty one, that one that works in the post office. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about.
I don't know. I haven't been in the post office in years.
Would you believe that they don't take 2 forms of photo ID? One's got to be a photo ID and one's got to be a non-photo ID.
Ah.
Do you think that 2 photo IDs would be better? Oh well.
Oh well.
Who am I to complain about the USPS? So yeah, once again, The Talk of the Street, P.O. Box 12, Eaton Rapids, Michigan, 48827.
Yes.
Just rolls off the tongue.
Yes.
I'm quite happy about having a P.O. Box.
I know. I can't wait to announce it on List of Lists and then be horribly disappointed that List of Lists never gets any mail.
So don't tell people on that then.
Just like they never send us any email. Or if they do, they send it to The Talk of the Street.
That's fine. It all gets to the right place in the end. Then Cheeky writes, what can I say about this week except for exceptional and heartbreaking? I can't say I know what it's like to lose a loved one to a terminal illness, but I can say it was a remarkable effort by Peter Ash. Especially love the complication that neither Bernie nor Summer can bring themselves to tell Billy that. We'll get to that. Mm-hmm. I like the idea that we have Amy being a major support to Addie, bringing back the possibility of that romance once again. Truly phenomenal work by everyone involved, showing that the process of grief takes so many different forms. I hope when I'm a few years older that I don't have to go through the same difficulty that the Winter Brown family is going through at the current moment, because it's so crushing in every way. Give your kids an extra squeeze tonight, because it's always important for them to know how extraordinary they are. Wise words, Cheeky, and if the kids didn't eat my fucking Chinese...
Just one of them!
I would definitely be doing that.
The other one got her braces off this week. I forgot to talk about that.
What a difference.
Yeah.
It's like our teeth got bigger.
Yeah. Isn't that weird?
It's like our teeth got bigger and really, really white.
Yeah.
Feedback is always welcome. Send us your thoughts and I will probably read them out. Get us at thetalkofthestreet@gmail.com, or our DMs are open at Corrie Podcast. Please note though that we reserve the right to edit feedback, but only...
in the interest of brevity.
Correct, in the interests of brevity. And now, let's podcast for coffee. Thank you to Ian Les Paul for our coffees this week.
Thank you, Ian Les Paul, and your wife.
Ian writes, Gav asks the same question each week. Do we, his audience, consider the podcast to be worth anything more than the time it takes to listen to it? This question has often kept me awake at night, so I decided to get a definitive answer. I invite you to do the same and ask AI. The final paragraph, the conclusion, right 90% of the time they qualify, is that it is indeed worth the time, but there is that qualifying word if, meaning that if the podcast fulfills certain goals that they lay out at some length, then it is probably worthy of my time and attention. This has me more confused than ever, if I'm totally honest. I was going to buy you both a coffee on learning this, but I asked AI if this was appropriate, and they answered 1 coffee between Gavin and Helen to be shared.
What? What?
So that is what I will do. Sip it slowly. Thank you very much, Ian Les Paul. I did ask ChatGPT, is Talk of the Street podcast worth anything more than the time it takes to listen to it? And its response was, I'm going to say, non-committal.
Yeah, I stopped by Dunkin' Donuts on the way home and got a pumpkin spice chai latte
Well, it's that time of year.
with oat milk. And it was delicious.
That's
I don't know if you would like it.
pumpkin spice, unlikely.
Pumpkin spice is so good. You eat pumpkin pie.
Once a year.
All right, fine.
So, do I really like pumpkin pie?
I don't know.
I like the whipped cream that's on it.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, that's why I'm eating that. Also, thanks to Aussie Ali for our coffees this week.
Thank you, Aussie Ali.
You restrain yourself. It seems that you haven't offended her too much.
No, I didn't think I did.
Because she sent us some more coffee money and says, let's put another shrimp on the Barbie. So,
I think at this point, people are used to Americans being offensive. And we're seen as charming children.
I tell you something though, you were right about the shrimp.
On the Barbie? Yeah, it's prawns.
They call it prawns, and the reason that they say shrimp on the Barbie is for people like you.
Yeah. Only not like me because I know they say prawns
Right.
and don't actually drink Foster's.
They say prawn and shrimp.
Uh-huh.
Prawn to describe the bigger shrimp,
Uh-huh.
and shrimp to describe the
little
smaller
one.
shrimp, which
Yeah.
is kind of like the UK as well.
Yeah.
And after going a little while without pressing this button, guess what I'm about to do? Because we have...
Friend of the podcast.
And you're right to salute that, Helen.
I am right to salute it.
That's just a little too long.
Who is our new friend
Our
of
new
the
friend of the
podcast?
podcast is Tina.
Tina!
Welcome aboard, Tina.
Tina
is happy to be a friend of the pod. She says, I've been listening to you guys for years, and yes, I know, I recognise your name. Not sure when I started, but I know it was pre-pandemic, so yeah, that's like
Yeah.
5-6 years now. Oh my God.
God, it's so weird to think that we've been doing this for years, and yet we have
This is our 7th year.
our 7th year.
We haven't had a regular Friday in 7 years.
Well, no, we have
Occasionally.
when we were in Kansas.
Now we came back to do the podcast even that week.
Oh, that's right. There are times we're on vacation where we don't.
I'm going to say the vast majority.
Yeah.
Wow. Tina continues, I've been watching Corrie since 2012. That's a long time. It absolutely is. I've also watched a lot of classic Corrie on the YouTube. I've interacted with you both over the years via Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at Corrie Podcast. Talk of the Street is definitely a favourite podcast, and sometimes over the last couple of years I've watched Corrie just because I know I have a podcast from you waiting for me. Well, thank you very much indeed, Tina.
That is
absolutely
so delightful.
I said it last week, I'm saying it again. It's a humbling thing when people sign up to be a friend of the podcast or just buy
It's
us
true.
our coffees.
It's
And
true.
that's 2 weeks on the bounce, and we're kind of flabbergasted a little bit. Thank you so much to Tina. Thank you to Aussie Ali, and also thanks to Ian Les Paul. The Talk of the Street is and will always be free on your podcast provider and on the YouTubes. But if after consulting ChatGPT you think our show is worth anything more than the time it takes to listen to it, and you want to show your appreciation, you can buy us next week's coffee by going to ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/the Talk of the Street. You can also sign up to be a friend of the podcast through the same link, where for as little as $2 a month, you can get a mention in the closing credits of each and every episode. And we now have a Patreon site where you can also show us some love and sign up there as a friend of the podcast, patreon.com/the Talk of the Street. But remember, please, you can always support the podcast for free and get us in front of new listeners by liking, subscribing, rating and reviewing wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes.
Thank you very much again. Shall we dive in, my dear?
Y'all, please.
We just got a couple of episodes to get through.
I know, that's
This
crazy,
week
man.
I didn't realise this until after Mondays because the National TV Awards were on Wednesday and
Right.
we lost an episode.
Which is fine.
So we can zoom through this, one would hope. Our first storyline tonight is Tommy OMFG. On Monday, Amy is getting a hard time on the phone from Tracy, who wants to do a stock take at the florist, which Amy thinks is deflection from facing the main problem in her life, which is what she's going to do about Tommy O.
What is she going to do about Tommy O?
Ken wishes he could help her after losing her inheritance, which he can absolutely do if he wants to.
He could. Yes, because remember, he has secret money that nobody knows about, only he doesn't know that one person knows about it.
Yeah, 50 grand he won on the premium bonds, I think like a month ago.
Right.
We saw a very brief scene where he was on the phone to somebody,
Yeah.
presumably the premium bond guy, that told him about his good fortune that Cassie overheard.
Yes.
So then Cassie comes in with some kind of vibrator to take.
It's a massage gun, just like the one I got Benny for his birthday.
He's going to use that to shake Ken's dentures loose. And
It's going to shake something loose.
And the moment passes. After Amy has gone and Cassie has broken the vibrator on Ken, he tells Cassie
massage gun.
that he's thinking about using his premium bond to help Amy out. Remember, you won 50 grand. She's 40 grand in the hole, so
Yeah.
he can give her 40 and still have 10 grand to play with himself.
But not like that.
Sure. Cassie pretends that she didn't know anything about this, but grins through gritty teeth as Ken talks about Amy deserving it. She tells him in a roundabout way that it might be prudent just to hold on to his money for now, for a rainy day. Ken's in two minds, but when Amy comes in with good news from another storyline about her investment maybe being returned, Ken thinks, fuck it, changes his mind. He's keeping his money.
Well, does he, or is he about ready to tell her about the money, but then Cassie interrupts and says that he wanted to tell her about something else?
Amy wonders what's going on, so Cassie invents a story about going away on vacation, and this plants a seed, so Ken looks up some holidays, but reckons it's a non-starter as he'll need someone to go with him. Hiya, my name's Cassie, says Cassie.
And I am already, wiping your ass.
So on Friday, at number one, Steve is going on about Billy Joel. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, I've got to listen to this now from Steve. Mm-hmm. Amy is more interested in knowing what's happening with Rowan. Tracy is more interested in getting her help at the florist. But Amy knows that she's just deflecting about Tommy O, who is continually calling Tracy, but Tracy keeps on dinging it. But at the florist, Tracy watches with interest as Amy gives Addie a hug about Paul. And Tracy thinks she could do a lot worse than Addie. Amy thinks she's the same vis-a-vis Tommy, and she encourages her mum to call her. Later, Amy is meeting
Call him.
Later, Amy is meeting up with Addie, and Tracy thinks that this is a date. Asha thinks it's just about time they got together. And to get a ton of mileage out of the scene, Tracy announces that she's going back to Spain to be with Tommy tomorrow. She's had a think, and she can't live without him. At the Rovers, Amy and Asha are at the bar when Steve comes in, and Tracy explains to him that she's heading back to Spain tomorrow. Steve is only too pleased to give her a lift to the airport. She hopes it won't be too painful for him, and that he'll let her go gently. He just wants to make sure that it'll get paid, and this takes the wind out of Tracy's sails somewhat.
Just a wee bit.
And that's as far as we get with that this week.
Well, I think it's great that they can talk to one another as co-parents and I guess friends, maybe. And, and Steve seems genuinely happy for her and is not trying to win her back or anything. So it kind of seems like they are kaput, completely 100% now.
Given how recently he had problems with this,
Yeah.
and given how recently his thoughts on Tracy's relationship with Tommy O have kind of skippered his potential other relationships with Demi, for one. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of surprised that he's gone to just not caring anymore.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it was Cena again that did it.
Yeah.
Because when she's away, it's kind of, it's in his mind more than anything else. But
Right.
having her back and having Tracy back, and she was quite Tracy.
She's very Tracy.
So, yeah, maybe it makes sense. It just feels very quick that he's kind of written it all off and seemingly doesn't have any romantic feelings for her at all. But you're right, they did have conversations about his pubic hair at the start.
Right. And Amy and Amy's situation with the Institute and stuff.
Right.
And they've both been very supportive of her and a united front for her. So that's good. Mm-hmm. It's good to see them like that.
If anything, that's Tracy who seems to be taking this a bit harder than anyone else.
Yeah, it seems like it's been kind of hard for her, the fact that nobody seems to need her at home.
No, and she's not even staying at home. She's off in the hotel, presumably the rape hotel.
Yeah.
She's out at the family home. Nobody really seems to be missing her too much.
No.
Nobody was all that pleased to see her come back.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of frustrating that the whole storyline of Amy and Addie, the fact that Tracy's kind of like, oh, well, if you want to attract a man, you have to do this and this and this. And Amy's kind of like, I don't dress for a man or anything. And then it's very disappointing when we see her later and she's wearing Tracy's leather pants. I thought we were sticking up for ourselves and not dressing for a man, Amy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't feel like Amy would be the one to kind of fall for that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Because even Addie was kind of taken aback.
Yeah, but it kind of felt like he was taken aback.
Oh, in a nice way.
In a nice way.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like, oh, good for you, Amy. Yeah, you don't have to dress for no man.
They were dressed like they were both in a German electronic dance music band, I felt.
Amy was kind of dressed like a French mime. She
Yeah,
was
lots
just
of
in a
black and
beret.
white. Mm.
Yeah, and stripes.
Remind me. Mm-hmm. They tried to be in a relationship before.
Right, and Amy wasn't ready.
Too soon.
Yeah.
After the rape.
Yes.
Which is understandable.
Yes.
Obviously.
So.
Did he decide to back off a little bit?
She was the one who decided to back off because, remember, she kind of had that freak out moment.
They kissed and she freaked out.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
But then she talked to Asha about it. She kind of killed a few demons, I think, in that conversation. And she was keen to rekindle something with Addie. And then Addie at that point had said, look, I'm just glad that we've agreed to be friends. And that's what we'll be.
Yes. Which was the right thing to do.
At the time, yeah. So it feels like the two of them are maybe heading towards each other again. Which,
We'll see.
Which we, I think, would be very pleased to see.
Yes.
So Cassie's going after Ken's money, we assume.
Right. Well, she's going after a free vacation.
And she's at least getting a free vacation out of it. I kind of wish they'd stop doing this with Cassie's character and just pick a lane for her. Is she reformed or is she not? This middle ground is somewhat frustrating. I feel like I want to like her more than I do, but every time I try to like her a bit more, something like this crops up.
Especially since she seems to genuinely like Ken.
Exactly.
Now. So it's kind of weird to think that she's trying to get her meat hooks into his money.
Mm-hmm. And
a free vacation obviously makes sense, but...
Yeah, that doesn't seem as Cloak and Dagger's trying to get her hands into 50 grand. I guess a free vacation... It's not the greatest look, but I guess it could be worse.
Right.
Oh well. Let's move on to our next storyline then, which is Reality Coding Bites. On Monday, in the bistro, Leanne has absolutely no intentions of working with Nick. And after a few barbs getting slung about her mental well-being, which Nick is quick to retract, he agrees to take a step back from the business for a while, but this is something that they're going to have to face up to sooner or later. Nick reiterates his intentions to break the institute, but Leanne doesn't melt, and she'll never forgive him for shagging her sister. In Nina's roles, Nick speaks to Toyah about unleashing hell upon the institute, but Toyah now doesn't think this is such a great idea as it'll put Leanne through more. Nick refuses to budge though. He's compiled a dossier on the matter, and he takes it to the cop shop where he leaves it in the safe hands of a bemused
Swain.
Indeed, she quickly hands it off to somebody else, though.
Probably, yes.
Meanwhile, Toyah goes to the bistro to tell Leanne about Nick's intentions, but Leanne doesn't give a fuck anymore. She has nothing else to lose, so Nick can do whatever he likes, which is what Nick told Toyah. Amy appears, wondering who the institute are ripping off now, which spurs Leanne to mention the files that she emailed to herself that time that she was going through Rowan's laptop at the hotel. Leanne has found a veritable treasure trove of accounts and bank transfers and all the other good stuff, but no mention of a resource centre. It feels like it was a scam right enough.
Yeah.
As Leanne explains this to Amy over FaceTime, Rowan arrives at the flat. He knows that she stole the files because the Institute has a very sophisticated data security and cybersecurity setup,
Yes.
otherwise known as the sent items of his email.
Right. Yeah. It's shady. It kind of makes it seem like the Institute is just Rowan.
Yeah, and nothing else that happens kind of changes my mind about this.
No.
He claims to be a victim in all this too because he's not terrified of the police or going back to jail. He's terrified of what the Institute will do to him. Leanne doesn't give a fuck. She thought he was a friend and he was always plotting behind her back. He warns her that the Institute has endless resources. Again, if they had endless resources, then why do they want 40 grand out of Amy?
Well, because they just want more and more money.
More endless resources.
Yeah. Yes.
But he reckons that he can get Amy's money back through more nefarious means. He has access to their accounts, so he can go in and nab the money and give her it back. But
Right.
only if Leanne guarantees that she won't go after him. Leanne pretends to phone for cover for the bistro while she thinks about this. Rowan makes out that he's interested romantically in her and strokes a hand a wee bit, but he's been doing that for months. And it looks like she's working with him as she decides to hand over a thumb drive to him. She asks if she'll see him again, and he smirks and calls her a fool. But wait a minute,
and
Helen.
very gullible.
But wait a minute, Helen. It's the old switcheroo.
It is.
Because in bursts Nick and Toyah and Amy, and it seems that the police are on their way, so
Yes.
Rowan pushes by them and does a runner.
Yes. But he is caught. We assume.
Yeah. We don't see any of this.
No.
That's him gone now,
Yeah.
I think.
Probably. Back to LA.
It's a hard life.
It is.
On Friday, Leanne and Toyah are still cool towards each other as Sam deliberately slips his drink and then tries to distract him with riddles. He's worried that they hate each other and says they should be lucky because they're siblings and they have each other, and not all siblings can say that. Cough, cough. What about Paul? He recommends forgetting Nick exists just as Nick knocks on the door.
That was hilarious.
That was funny.
Because Nick tries to get in to say something, and Sam's like, nope.
Right.
And just pushes him out.
Fuck all the way off here.
Get off of that thing.
Later, Toyah tries again to break down Leanne's walls for Sam's sake, she says. And Leanne agrees, and they make some chili together that Toyah's going to take round to
Billy
Paul and Billy.
and another-
Well, not to Paul, because Paul's dead.
Billy in another storyline. And it's veggie chili. And Leanne says, hasn't the man suffered enough?
I always thought that Toyah was more a proponent of veggie lasagna.
Well, she makes chili too.
Yeah,
Man cannot live on lasagna alone.
quite
And
true.
chili's easier to make.
Unless you're Garfield. Well, it's certainly less time consuming, that's true.
And Garfield's not a man.
He is male, though. But the dinner making doesn't go well, and soon Leanne's brandishing a knife when Toyah says that she's got her life back from the Institute. Got my life back? I've lost everything.
Right.
Well, you've lost Nick. Nick comes in later to reveal...
Well, she's worried that she might lose Sam as well. She doesn't want to lose Sam, which is really sweet considering that when she first found out about Sam, she kind of didn't want to have anything to do with him.
Yeah, it was a very difficult start to the relationship because
Yes.
she just lost all of her.
Correct.
Nick comes in later to reveal that Rowan has been charged with fraud or whatever, and then he leaves them to it. Well, I guess that's something. And that's as far as we get with that storyline this week.
Does it feel like maybe they should have waited a week for Rowan to get his comeuppance instead of the week where we have this big, massive other thing happening?
Well, see, I think if
only
you ask
2
that
episodes.
question now, then we get kind of bogged down in that whole business.
Yeah. Which we will probably talk about later when that whole thing happens and how.
So I don't think I'm going to give a full answer to that
Not yet, anyway.
right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing, kind of the silly other little stuff that happens, you know, like Ken gets a massage gun stuff. It's one thing for that, but for like something else that's really important in a storyline, like Rowan's mask finally slipping and getting arrested. It kind of feels like for something that big, it should have been spread out a little more. But I guess, like you said, we will talk about that in another storyline.
Yeah, for this one, though, it does feel like it's been wrapped up very quickly. If this was the way that they were going to tell the story, then I think it deserved a little bit more. It's come to a conclusion,
Well-
as these things tend to do on the show, that they build something up, and then the actual resolution of it happens off camera.
Yeah, but Amy still hasn't gotten her money back yet. We still haven't healed the rift between Leanne and Toyah, or Leanne and Nick, satisfactorily. So it's not completely wrapped up yet.
Do you see those relationships getting mended at any point?
Well, I think Toyah and Leanne will eventually get mended.
I think they're like a day away from being almost back to normal.
Right. Because as we've pointed out before, this isn't the first time they've shared a man.
Right.
And Leanne was a lot more upset about Peter.
This is true. But what about Nick? I think they might be Splitsville for goods.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're Splitsville for goods.
Nick doesn't love her. Nick doesn't want back with her.
No. I'm concerned about what this means for the bistro, because I kind of like Nick and Leanne running the bistro. I think they work well in that setting.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm concerned that one will have to buy the other out and won't be able to afford to buy the other out. And so we'll get new ownership of the bistro again.
Or maybe that's what brings them eventually not back together again as a romantic couple, but back together again as business partners, where they realise that they're forced to work together.
Right.
That if they want to make some money,
Right.
they're going to have to be at least tolerant of each other, which obviously they aren't at the moment. But
They'll get there.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's such a shame. I still think it's a shame from Nick's reintroduction to the show a few years ago, kind of making out that these are two star-crossed lovers that destined to be together.
Yeah.
And yet all it takes is dead Oliver occult and Toyah and her ovarian cancer to throw all that asunder.
Right. Isn't it miraculous how Toyah is all of a sudden no longer having... It is completely cured and doesn't seem to have to be on any sort of medication or regular doctor's appointments to get blood work on a regular basis.
I would have thought she would still be a bit ouchy. She had an ovary removed, so that's not a full hysterectomy, right?
Correct.
So it's not a... What? So it's maybe not...
Do you know what a hysterectomy is?
I do, and I know people that have had it, and
Yeah.
they're off work for weeks.
Right, yeah. Yeah, but that's having like the whole kit and caboodle removed.
And that's what I'm saying.
That's
And
like
this-
getting...
And this isn't that.
No, that's just this, not this.
But I would still imagine there's some recovery time. I was pleased when they remembered that, well, maybe we shouldn't get our whole scene as I got surgery on my ovaries the other day.
Right, yeah.
But then the next day, I think Toyah led him to bed with the intention
Right, but then
of
it
getting
didn't
a hole,
happen.
and then they didn't get it. But
And maybe they were just going to cuddle. I don't know. When I had my gallbladder removed, that was fairly quick because it's a laparoscopic surgery.
or keyhole surgery.
Yes, which is a cuter way to say laparoscopic.
Definitely easier to say.
So, and the gallbladder, you're in and out, and you're walking around, and you're fine later that day. So, I would imagine, but I would have thought that they would have had her on some form of medication just to be on the safe side to make sure they got everything, and have her coming in for regular blood work to make sure that they got everything. Of course, your colon is different from your ovary.
Well, that's news to me. I tell you, every day is a school day.
Every day is a school day, but Alan, they couldn't
Wait to tell people at work.
they couldn't do my colon laparoscopically. I kind of wish they had.
Well, it's kind of a keyhole.
they didn't go that way either.
Yeah. It's funnier to think of it, though, the way that I'm suggesting.
No.
No, it really is.
That has enough to deal with the colonoscopies.
That's true. They're definitely going that way.
It makes sense that Nick and Leanne are never getting back together. Because it's just... They make each other so unhappy.
Well, yeah, and apart from anything else, actions have to have consequences.
Correct.
And when they don't have consequences, that's when we feel like we're being a bit cheated and stuff. So...
Do you think Nick and Toyah will eventually...
I can't see that happening either.
Yeah.
Because it's too Imran.
When did Leanne have a thing with Imran?
Imran, remember, he thought he was in with both of them. And so was setting up a date with one day and was setting up a date with the other one the other day. He was being a bit of a Flash Harry.
Why do I not remember any of this?
It was quite a while ago.
Yeah, but I remember Nick and Imran in their hunter pants on the deck.
Who could forget?
I definitely couldn't.
Yeah, I think it was before that. I don't know that Leanne slept with Imran,
No.
but she went on a date with him.
Right.
Certainly.
So it wasn't as serious as, say, Peter and now Nick.
Yeah, but there was a kind of sisters together thing of casting Imran aside. And then Toyah thought, do you know what? I actually quite fancy a bit of that.
Yeah.
So I think Leanne, or I remember anyway, perhaps incorrectly, that Leanne felt a bit cheated by Toyah's actions.
Yeah.
Was it this week that Leanne had a go at Toyah in her role as a therapist or a counsellor?
Yes.
It's kind of what everyone's been saying for so long. You couldn't have been a very good counsellor then.
Yeah.
Although I think Toyah does try.
Yeah, I think she's pretty good. I would like to see her go back to doing that as a profession.
Yeah. She needs to make amends with Dr. Gadas for that.
Well, she could work at another hospital. It's not like there aren't other ones around. It's not like she couldn't go into practice on her own. Open her own counseling station.
Counselling station.
Counseling office. Although I kind of prefer the counseling station.
I like the idea of that.
All aboard. Toyah's counseling station.
Therapy will be departing from platform 1. All right, let's move on then. Our next storyline is Tyrone's Mini-Me. Do you know, this storyline just kind of passed me by this week.
Yeah, because very important things were happening in other very important storylines.
Yeah. On Monday, it's Ruby's birthday and Dorin is handing out presents in Nina's rolls when Tyrone leaves the table to take a call from Alina. Despite not working at the factory, Tyrone goes into the factory to tell Fizz that the news is that the traffickers were found guilty, and so Alina can come out of hiding and get home to Romania and take Dorin with her. And she plans to leave tomorrow. Oh my god, everything's tomorrow. All go that, lassie. Tyrone, obviously, like Rana, is crushed. He wants to try to persuade Alina to stay in Weatherfield, and Fizz, somewhat surprisingly, tells him to go for it. So on Friday, Tyrone breaks the news to the girls that Dorin is due to go home, and even Hope seems very upset about this.
All of a sudden, Hope loves this kid. Remember when Hope did not love this kid and did not love the idea of a little brother, and now all of a sudden something happens off stage, and now she can't be without him. Because remember, Tyrone says something about Hope helping Dorin brush his teeth or something cute that we never get to see, and now all of a sudden Hope is very pro little brother.
What is she up to?
It's kind of ridiculous. It's Todd and Paul making up off stage all over again.
I'm saying what is she up to?
Because you think she's up to something, but I don't think she is.
I don't think so either. The way that she was going on about it felt convincing to me.
And also, if she did have an ulterior motive, you'd think that she would be eager to get rid of him. And if she can just get rid of him an easy way, why wouldn't she?
The way she was talking and the language that she was using made it sound like she was jealous of Ruby's relationship with Dorin, and she wanted to be the main big sister. That's kind of how it sounded. Because she wasn't exactly snarky to Ruby, but she said a few things that just felt like she was trying to put Ruby in her place a little bit.
Yeah, she was rather snarky with Ruby this week, which I did not appreciate.
Ty promises that Dorin won't be going anywhere today and sends them both off to school. He speaks with Alina in Nina's roles, but she has no intention to stay in Weatherfield and is dying to get back to Romania. But she leaves the kid with him so that they can have some time together. Hope is fucking furious about this, that Tyrone didn't ban Alina and Dorin from leaving the country. Ty would rather that they spend some happy time together while they can, but when he checks on Ruby, she's fucked off to the precinct with Dorin.
Yeah. She's like, I'm out of here. We're going to go hula hooping. In the playground where drug dealers sell drugs.
Hula hooping and roller skating and
going to the sock hop and listening to Elvis Presley records in our poodle skirts.
Maybe a little bit of hacky sack as well. They love a bit of hacky sack.
Yeah, that's a different decade.
Ty quickly finds her though. Back home, he's negotiated a stay of execution and Dorin can stay the night. Fizz is pissed that Tyrone isn't reprimanding Ruby for essentially kidnapping Dorin, but Ty doesn't think any harm is done. This is Ty again, just finding it impossible to chastise or punish kids for doing the wrong thing.
Right. Yeah. And also, he's very much a big kid himself.
Mm-hmm.
There's not an awful lot of maturity in Tyrone, and we'll see more of that later when a woman tells him he's going to do something and he does something else in a snit to try to stop her from doing something because he's very immature.
Oh, what's that?
When he calls Adam and says...
Oh, yeah. But who did he tell that he wasn't going to do something?
She says, we're going back to Romania, and then Fizz makes travel plans so they can go visit him in Romania, and it seems like everything's going to work out fine. And then he's like, nope, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Women having autonomy does not work for me. I must have my son with me at all times because patriarchy.
Is that what Tyrone's thinking? Do you think Tyrone's thinking because patriarchy?
I don't think he's thinking it in those words, but I think he is thinking it because it's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, let me say what you've just said in a slightly different way.
Right, yes.
So later, Fizz is looking at Romanian holidays for next year on the laptop, thinking that, you know, the world's a small place now. We can always go visit. But she knows it's tough for Ty. Points out there's video calls and all the other things that they can do to keep in touch. So it's not that bad.
Right.
Dorin is part of the family now, and they're not likely to forget that. And Ty agrees. And then immediately goes outside and calls Adam. He's decided to take all the steps he can to keep Dorin in the country. And remember, this is him starting to play nasty now. Right.
Yes. And also wasting all the money that they would use for the Romanian vacation next year on trying to keep his son in the country, which is going to fail.
But this is it. He's had Ruby take Dorin, I guess, through love. Mm-hmm. He's got Hope nipping his ear about it.
Right.
Calling him a failure and stuff for letting this happen.
Right. Which, maybe let's not take advice from children about adult things.
Right. He's
Tyrone.
listening to the two of them.
Right.
And ignoring Fizz.
And Alina.
Let's not forget Alina.
Yes. He's listening to the children and not the adult women because patriarchy.
And because the children are saying things that he agrees
wants,
with.
Right. Yeah. Because patriarchy. Because man must have son close by all times.
Yeah. He's very
caveman here.
Now that he has a male heir. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's fucking ridiculous. And I'm glad he stopped wearing our t-shirt.
He's I think I don't know if we're meant to be on his side about this. I don't think that we are.
Because we're not.
But we want Dorin to stay in the show.
Do we?
Oh, he's so cute.
He's very cute, but he's also distracting.
Oh, you think he's distracted?
Yes.
What, because you know that he's going to do something when he's on screen?
Right, yes. And also, he can be quite loud while you're trying to listen to other people in another storyline talk to one another.
Yeah, I'm still finding that adorable at the moment.
Like poor David trying to nurse his hangover at the other table right across from them.
Oh, well, he fucking deserved that.
Oh,
David? David can GTF as far as I'm concerned.
aw. David did good things this week. He helped his friend. And he mourned his friend.
I'm sure we will get to that in some detail. And maybe it sounds like we will have some disagreements. I'm kind of frustrated with Alina from the perspective that everything happens immediately with no notice. And that makes these things kind of harder to deal with if you're Tyrone. He's not one that seems to like an awful lot of change thrust upon him quickly.
Yes, because he's very immature.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if it's necessarily fair to blame Alina or the show, because this does, again, this feels like something that should have waited for a different week. It should have been spread out a little bit more. All the bad guys are in jail now, really? Because
all of them.
Because there are bad guys who weren't even on trial, including the one that Ronnie punched beautifully.
We solved
the other
human
week.
Trafficking this week
Yeah.
in Coronation Street.
Yes. All of the human traffickers are in jail now. You're welcome.
Yep.
You know.
All the
'cause-
Romanian human traffickers.
Yeah. And
All the Romanian human traffickers
in England.
from Luton with no chin.
In England. Who aren't in Romania right now.
Oh, no, they are in Romania.
Right,
now.
yeah. She's going to go back to... all of the ones in England are locked up.
Oh,
There are
sorry.
people in Romania who are probably related to these human traffickers or are in business with these human traffickers, because let's remember, there have to be human traffickers in Romania as well, finding the poor saps like Alina to dupe and bring over to England. So...
As well as all the ones that are coercively forced into doing it.
Right. So there's an awful lot of oversimplicity here that I think is done because there are the big important things happening in other storylines this week. So they didn't want to pull too much focus. And I think that's to the detriment of the story.
You know, I think the timeline for this whole thing has been arse over tit from the start.
Yes.
She was coming and she was going. She was coming back for a victim statement. She stayed. She was going to go back. She couldn't go back because of the human trafficker, so she stayed and she went into hiding and all this other stuff. It was like,
Right.
wait a minute,
For
this
a
is far
week.
too much going on here for something that...
Should be far more serious.
And was this the stuff that related to her human trafficking, or was this... Because that was like years ago. That was like 2021
Right.
and before, I think.
Yeah.
So the whole timeline for it's been
Wonky.
completely wonky, yeah. Oh well.
Oh, well.
Our penultimate storyline tonight is scenes from a Weatherfield police station. On Monday.
I thought you didn't like Billy Joel.
I don't. I hate him. Hate him. On Monday, Carla grabs a word with Betsy at the factory about sticking with her college work. Her apprenticeship at the knicker factory is only sustainable if Carla can trust her. Yeah, about that, says Betsy, and she tells Carla about grassing her up to her mum. So, Carla goes to the police station and hands herself in and explains what happened, how she hit and then ran one of those BMX bandits. Swain confirms a complaint was made at the time, and so she's duty-bound to interview Carla under caution and warns her that she could get done for ABH for this.
Uh-oh.
On their way out, Betsy is in the waiting room and she makes her feelings known when she sees Carla and her mum coming out all friendly-like.
And I'm confused by this because she had to have known that Carla was going to go and turn herself in when Betsy told her. Mm-hmm. So she shouldn't be surprised that Carla's there. And yet she is surprised that Carla's there.
But she's also surprised by how pally they are together. And she makes her feelings known about this lesbian affair that is in front of her. Carla is amused.
Carla's like, what the hell are you talking about?
Swain is embarrassed and promises to sort it out. Bum chickawawa. On Friday, Swain has news for Dee Dee from Joel's phone. Her experts have managed to find some text messages to a female. She's not supposed to investigate any of this, but investigate she will, damn it. Or maybe she'll outsource this.
Yes,
So
to
she
someone.
speaks to someone ginger.
To someone we can throw away.
So she speaks to PC Tinker about Ellie, who's the contact in the text message, and the grooming language that was used in the messages. Mm-hmm. And Ellie's name rings a bell with him. He remembers going to her address, but she had already fled. Swain explains that she isn't allowed to do any digging, but maybe Tinker.
Maybe Tinker.
And he can do some digging instead, so he agrees to help. Later.
He is a bent cop after all.
Absolutely. So he digs out a recent address for Ellie, and Swain is impressed. And later, she's in the Rovers and speaks to Dee Dee and Daniel reveals that he knows someone who knew Ellie. He's his friend, Nikki, with the sex cardigans. And he offers to speak to her to maybe try and arrange a meeting or whatever.
Swain?
And that's as far as we get with that this week.
Because didn't we initially do Swain
That's Swain out.
That's Swain out. But we started Swain in a different storyline, didn't we?
Yes, we did. That's Swain out.
Swain out.
Again, I was quite excited about the whole BMX Bandit thing.
Right.
Because we can place Betsy at the scene, seeing this happen, seeing Joel
Right.
and Evelyn there. I wasn't sure what was important about that, but it felt like it was an important part of the story that Swain didn't know and now will find out. But that hasn't happened.
But it might still. I feel like that might still be a factor. But I like the fact that, like, some of this other stuff is coming together. Like, everybody, like, different people remembering Ellie for different reasons and kind of coming together and forming this coalition of cops and lawyers and whatever Daniel is.
He is still a teacher.
Is he? Okay. That's right. He got his job back.
He did.
It was funny him kind of like snarking on Swain about, yes, that was the girl that you asked me about, remember?
When you accused me of moida.
And molestation. Remember?
You're still one for the watching, Daniel, so
Seriously.
I'd take it easy if I were you.
So it does kind of feel like it's starting to come together.
See, it feels to me now that Ellie is more that missing piece than the whole BMX Bandit thing.
Yeah.
But
it might still play a part. We don't know.
makes that and Evelyn's discovery of Joel having one of his moments in the car less important and more kind of throwaway.
Yeah, but maybe not. We'll see.
Well, this is how it's making me feel at the moment.
Right. Things may change by the time you hear this.
Carla and Swain, though, I mean, Swarla has been a potential thing for a while now.
Yes.
Personally, I'm all for it. And it kind of feels like it was maybe the start of, well, both the reactions were interesting because Carla was amused by it.
Yes.
But also seemed to have a little, moment. Swain felt like she was a schoolgirl who just got caught.
She wanted the earth to open up and swallow her whole.
Absolutely.
But not like that.
And the rest of her. So it was interesting, both reactions. That Swain maybe does have a kind of eye or likes the look of Carla, let's say. And Carla was wondering, maybe that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to happen. But I feel like it's early days. I feel like they're going to string this out, if indeed it does go in that direction.
If you found out that a man fancied you, or a man's child accused that man of fancying you, would you be like, oh, well, maybe that wouldn't be the worst thing to happen?
Well, it would be flattering. And if I wasn't in a relationship at that point. Are we talking Hunksville?
Your definition of Hunksville may be different from mine.
I don't know. I think I would definitely be flattered.
But you wouldn't make the kombucha girl face. And then,
I don't know what that is.
It's like one of the most famous memes in the world.
The kombucha girl? Oh,
Yeah.
that wee lassie? Is that what she's doing that at?
Yeah, she takes a sip of kombucha. At first she's like, no. But then she's like, well,
I didn't know that was kombucha.
it was kombucha.
We're thinking about the same wee blonde wee lassie.
I think so.
Okay.
She makes a face like, and then,
I mean, you doing it over and over again is making me think that we're talking about different things. Let me just...
how often are we going to derail ourselves tonight?
Kombucha. I keep on forgetting how you spell kombucha. Oh, that wasn't what I was thinking. That wasn't what I was thinking. I don't think I've seen that meme.
You haven't seen that?
I don't think so. I'd like to know the Toyah girl's thoughts on the matter, though.
I think she's gone into hiding after all the MAGA love she got.
I think
for
she's
some
fantastic,
reason.
and I'll tell you why. In her 15 minutes of fame following the explosion of
Right.
this meme, she made a bit of cash out of it.
Right.
She used that money to buy pet food that she then donated to her local animal shelter.
Isn't that great?
Love it.
And all
Love it.
because she spit on a dick.
Well, all because she says,
That she spits on a dick.
yeah,
Which, you know,
Toyah.
yeah. Don't we all? I mean,
Well,
that's the way to do it, right?
sometimes you're dribbling in it. I don't know if that counts. Anyway,
Anyway,
I feel like we must move on.
and that was this week's edition of Cock Talk. We managed to get it in. But not like that.
Yeah.
John Doe has the upper hand.
Oh, no, you're going to get rid of Cock Talk?
Oh, no. I don't have cock talk, do I?
Do you have music for...
Round, round, baby, round, round.
Where did that come from?
No man. Oh, hiya.
What? What's that?
That was...
It's a Bum Chicka Wow Wow music.
Yeah, I can't find it.
There you go. Cocks.
Oops. That never happens to me.
The water was cold.
I've got a lot on my mind. All right, let's move on to our final storyline tonight.
Oh, no.
I think we've segued perfectly into the Bye Bye Paul storyline.
Oh, God.
So, on Monday,
Ah.
Billy was more fucked up last night than we remember him being, and he is nursing the mother of all hangovers. Making matters worse, he's lost his phone, and Summer is ripping the absolute piss out of him, and he
Yeah.
has no sense of humour about it.
No, he has no sense of humor this whole week.
His phone, well, with
Understand?
reason, yeah.
Well, kind of understandably.
His phone is lost, and with it, his memories from the last 2 years, which is a really weird way of putting that. It's like he's downloaded all these memories into this phone that he's now lost.
Right, yes. And doesn't know what the cloud is.
No. There was a neighbour storyline this week that also featured someone who doesn't know what the cloud is. And it's like, come on, people. He goes to retrace his steps back to the rape hotel while Bernie takes over, and Paul tells him to chill his boots. These will be the last words that Paul will ever say to Billy.
And you know what? That's fine.
On the street, Billy runs into David, who agrees to go to the rape hotel to help him look. They're both still way over the limit, so they decide to walk, because walking is the best way to do something quickly. Don't get a taxi or anything like that.
Right.
Meanwhile, back at the God flat, Paul is struggling to breathe again, and his lips are turning blue, and Summer and Bernie's best efforts with the breathing machine don't help like they did the last couple of times, so Summer calls Paul an ambulance. Paul, you're an ambulance.
Yes.
At the rape hotel, David finds Billy's phone in the car park, but it's been run over and is officially fucked. So they go off to Freshco's for Billy to pick up a new handset. Back at the flat, Summer's frantic as the ambulance is 15 minutes away. Kit arrives just as Bernie thinks this might be it, and Billy is nowhere to be found because he's on a bench outside Freshco's with David. David's enjoying eating some crisps as if he has all the time in the world, and Billy tries to swap SIM cards and chats about which celebrity chef they'd like to fuck. So,
How about you?
celebrity chef? The female option in here was Nigella Lawson.
Uh-huh. She's got good boobs.
She was a no for me.
She does have nice boobs.
I don't know. Slim pickings, I think. What about you?
Well, Bourdain if he was still alive,
Oh,
obviously.
sure, everybody, yeah.
Yeah. Fieri?
Oh, God, no. He looks like he's in Blink 182.
I thought he was a member of Smash Mouth.
That's who I'm thinking of.
That's who you're
Thank
thinking of. You're welcome. He would be fun. I think Fieri would be fun.
But if you want somebody to talk dirty, you got to go Ramsay.
Oh, yeah.
What's that? It's your fanny. So, Kit rushes off to find Billy while we learn that the ambulance is now 5 minutes away. Paul is drilling blood at this point. It's Asha and another paramedic who arrive. Bernie begs them to keep Paul alive until Billy can be contacted. Kit finally finds Billy at Freshco's, but unfortunately, in the seconds it takes to explain what's happening, the car park suddenly becomes gridlocked. So while Gemma rides the ambulance with Paul, Kit...
Because of course it has.
Right. Kit runs off to see what he can do with the gridlock, and it turns out he can do fuck all about it because it's gridlock.
Right. Yeah, there's a broken down van at the entrance, and they can't get it moved yet.
So Bernie finally gets Billy... Oh, yeah. Bernie finally gets Billy on the phone as Paul reaches the hospital. She tells Billy that he needs to hurry his arse because Paul is on his way out. So Billy just does what he has to do and just starts to run.
Run, Billy, run.
The family and Chesney are gathered as the doctor tells them it's bad news. Paul has blood clots in his lungs and there's nothing much they can do about it. He advises them to say their goodbyes now. Bernie gives everyone strength, tells them that tears are for later. Come on now, let's go give him a good send-off.
And leave Chesney behind.
Yeah, Chesney, you're not invited.
What was up with that?
It's Chesney, man.
Chesney doesn't get to say goodbye to his brother-in-law?
Nope.
That was so weird. That was so weird. Why wouldn't Chesney have gone in? It's so weird. That bothered me so much.
It bothered me a little too, but it felt right.
If nothing else, he should be in there supporting his wife in her hour of grief.
And that's what Chesney's thinking of.
Not supporting his wife in her hour of grief.
No, he's just happy that he'd be sitting outside in his own waste thoughts.
It's ridiculous, man.
Paul seems unconscious as Summer says cheerio, tells him how much she loved him, and says that she'll see him later. So this is not goodbye, this is see you later.
Yes, when I die.
She calls him a proper dad. Gemma is next. She wants him to come back as an odd animal so she knows it's him and to come find her when her time is up. And Bernie sobs for her beautiful Apollo and tells him to reach for the stars. She thanks him and promises that she'll look after everyone for him. She calls Billy, who is still jogging through town and fucked and hungover still, let's remember. He asks to be put on speakerphone, but as the phone is placed on Paul's chest, Paul takes a final breath and passes away. Bernie signals to Gemma and Summer to let Billy believe that Paul's listening here. Billy's sorry that he's not there, and how he can only think of the good times that they've had. He tells him that he loves him and will miss him for the rest of his life. He'd do the same thing again and again because Paul has been the best thing that's ever happened. And when he finally gets to the hospital, he collapses onto Paul and cries as Bernie finally cries. I didn't cry. Did you cry?
Not really. I cried tonight's episode.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. You know, experiencing everyone's grief. out loud sort of thing. Yeah. I think we were correct in saying Paul should have died a couple of weeks ago when the whole episode was about him.
Yeah, 6 weeks ago that was now. And I was worried then that the emotion that they reached in that special episode of Paul's special day, or Paul's happy day, or whatever it was called, it would be impossible to recreate that.
Yeah, and it was impossible to
and
recreate
I feel
that.
like it was. I'm a little surprised that the reaction that I've seen online has been almost uniform praise for it.
Yeah. I also thought the whole keeping Billy away thing was ridiculous. It was one thing, I can't find my phone. I have to go look for my phone. And then, of course, it smashed to bits, so nobody can get a hold of me until they finally do. That was one thing. But then the whole, all of a sudden, the Freshco's car park is immovable thing. That I feel like that was a bridge too far. I felt like that was kind of ridiculous. And the whole Paul dying before Billy got there. It felt like a bridge too far, and it was kind of, it kind of crossed the line into kind of spoofy panto sort of thing as, being kind of ridiculous. The whole, just like the whole, oh my God, Paul's dying. Everybody is like in tears and desperately trying to get him to the hospital. And then we see Billy and David sitting on a bench eating some crisps and talking about chefs.
Yeah, it was like it was played for laughs almost.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is really, really weird.
Yeah.
And I'm already kind of upset with the show anyway because Paul's dying here.
Yeah.
And I don't give a single fuck about Ken's premium bonds this week.
No. Or his massage gun.
I don't care about Tyrone and Dorin this week.
Nope.
I don't care about anything. I care about
Paul dying.
Paul looks like he's about to die.
Right.
And we're having 5-10 minutes between, maybe not as much as 10 minutes, but certainly a couple of scenes unrelated to the story in between the snippets of this that we're getting. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I'm supposed to be upset about this.
Right.
And then...
You keep breaking my attention.
Exactly. And now it's becoming increasingly difficult to feel the emotion of the situation. And that's got nothing to do with the actors' performances because as I think it's been all the way through, they've been uniformly really, really good.
Yes.
Some of them absolutely astonishingly so.
Yes.
Again, Jane Hazelgrove particularly for me.
And Peter Ash.
But the show seemed to be reluctant to let me feel that emotion.
Right.
And when we had the special episode, it was exactly that. It was them telling one story over the course of the hour or the 44 minutes or whatever. And I absolutely agree that having the assisted suicide storyline is not the way that this storyline needed to be told. It would have been a little crass given the MND Association's involvement and all the other people who have MND and face the disease down and die from it. I don't think it would be the right message, and I think we've said that.
Which kind of makes you wonder why they added that element to begin with.
It's just another bit of drama that they're adding to it, like the number of times that Paul has to do something stupid, end up in a hotel room with an old flame, and he has to steal a car, and there's all the little additional add-ons that have never been all that taken by.
Yeah.
Because this storyline is strong enough to just kind of stand on its own.
Absolutely.
But there were methods in which they could have had Paul pass away, not through assisted suicide, during that episode.
Yeah.
Like, they wake up and he
he's
could just be
gone.
gone because we're waiting for that release.
Yeah.
And we don't get it in that episode.
We get it 6 weeks later in between Ken's massage gun.
Yeah. And I didn't feel like it was doing the story justice for me.
And conversely, some of these other storylines, it doesn't feel like they're really getting justice either, because we're not really able to focus on them completely because they're pulling focus, but they're not keeping our focus. Like the whole Rowan getting caught thing, especially since we never get to see it, which feels kind of ridiculous that we don't get to see him caught by the police outside, sort of thing. And the whole Tyrone with Dorin thing, and kind of rushing through Romania in order to get to something that could have just happened next week and not been as rushed, you know?
Yeah, I think there was enough in this story that could have taken up the whole of Monday exclusively.
And then, yeah, this week could have just been Paul's storyline. We could have had the death storyline Monday and the beginning of the funeral arrangements and seeing other people grieving for him on Friday. And, you know, that was another thing. It's like, it's weird that Chesney doesn't go in. And it's also weird that the other people who love Paul, like Dee Dee and Todd and David and Kit, never show up to the hospital. Especially David and Kit, because they know. And they don't make it to the hospital, even to be outside in the waiting room with David or with Chesney.
Because what Kit could have done, we've got gridlock over here trying to get out of the car park. Let's go over to the other side of the car park. And because I'm a policeman,
Right.
let's get a police car here
Right.
to get Billy to the fucking hospital.
Yeah. I'm sure he's got a cherry drop in the back seat of his car. He could just plop on the top.
They don't really have them in the UK, but there'd be equivalents thereof, right? There
Right.
are ways and means that this policeman,
Right.
who is related to the guy that is passing away,
Right.
can make this happen.
I kind of feel like we're cheated out of Kit, of all people, saying goodbye to his brother that he has just found. You know, I feel like that would have been a really emotional thing, and we don't get to see it. I hate to be picky about this because everybody is acting their asses off and doing a brilliant job.
Yeah, and it's written really well as well.
It's written really well, but it's constantly getting interrupted.
Yeah, I mean, focusing on this thread of it.
Right.
Even if you don't buy into the whole Billy not making it
Right.
in time. While we're talking about that, here's what I thought they did well.
Yes.
Paul's last breath was that death rattly last breath, which was eerie to listen to.
Yes.
Having been in a situation, sitting with my mum, literally just waiting for her to pass away, and you phoned because you were still in the US.
Yes.
I'm in Scotland, and you're on speakerphone. My mum
Yes.
can't hear you. My mum can't hear me. But you're there, and
hearing is the last thing to go.
and you're there.
So she might.
So that very much triggered me as well. And yet it still didn't reach the emotional heights of 6 weeks ago.
Yeah. Because we're not allowed to stay with it.
Yeah, and it became, for me, just sad.
Yeah.
This was a regular Monday night's Coronation Street where you've got an A storyline, which is the Paul stuff. You've got a B storyline, which I think was the Institute.
Right.
And then you've got a C, D, and E storyline, just a little incidental one. So you've still got the 5 storylines that are running through this episode, just like every other episode of Coronation Street.
Right.
It's just that in this episode of Coronation Street, Paul dies.
Right. Yeah.
And I think after a year and a half, it should have been more than that. It should have been, maybe don't do the special episode 6 weeks ago, and maybe this can be the special episode.
Right.
Or something of that nature.
Or maybe have the whole Paul deciding to not go through with assisted suicide be the part of the storyline that's an A, B, C, D, E night. And have the actual death be the episode where it's just focused on this. Because I feel like that would have worked better. You know. But again, everyone's acting was brilliant. You know, the parts in the hospital were just truly heartbreaking, except for the confusing bit with Chesney. You know, and I just wish that I had been allowed to focus just on that.
Yeah, I really wanted to be in tears as I was with the special episode.
Right.
I was ruined watching that. You didn't cry at it though.
No, you're right. I didn't.
Because you felt manipulated because he didn't die.
Right. Yeah. Yes, I got angry.
Yeah, I was crying all the way through
because
before
of
we
the
even got to that
manipulation.
bit.
Yeah.
Well, let's get through Friday then.
Yes.
So on Friday at home, Gemma breaks the news to the quads. In the God flat, Billy wakes on the couch looking at Paul's empty wheelchair.
Gemma's, yeah. See, I started to tear up with Gemma explaining to the quads, you know, and with sign language and with her words. And just seeing Gemma without her hair teased, without makeup.
Without that pancake on her face, yeah.
Yeah. That her and Summer, because Summer's not wearing any makeup either. To me, that's the face of grief.
Yep.
And it was just really, really, that's when the tears started to flow, because it's like, oh, these poor wee babies are still so young at this point. And then poor Joseph there as well. Yeah, and then the empty wheelchair. God, that killed me.
Yeah, that was big. In the community garden, David sniffs away tears, probably because it was his desire for crisps that meant Billy was late to get into the hospital.
That's not true. He had no idea at that point that he needed to be at the hospital. It is not David's fault.
But Billy knew, and Billy has been this way for weeks, where he doesn't want to leave Paul's side.
Right.
But in these important moments, Billy's kind of laissez-faire about getting back to the flat.
Right, which is fine because he has no idea this is the day that Paul's going to die.
Chesney is confused as Gemma says Paul will always be with us. Later, Todd goes to see Billy, who has beaten himself up about not being there. Bernie is at the undertaker's organising a budget funeral, or at least checking out prices and stuff. George explains the options and gives her a pamphlet. He says it should be a day for the family. Bernie is pretending that she's fine and enthuses about flowers. Todd thinks Billy should have a say in all this and explains Billy's frame of mind. Todd says at least Billy got a chance to speak to Paul on the phone. Yes, says Bernie. Someone Todd tracked Billy down to Nina's Rolls. He's inconsolable, thinking about the first time he saw Paul there. I'll never see him again, he says. So Todd reminds him that he's a Christian. Billy ignores this, and Todd says at least he got a chance to say goodbye. And prompted by Todd, Summer plays along and agrees that Paul knew it was Billy he was talking to.
Right.
And obviously, he had passed away by that point. With the quads at school, Gemma's positivity has evaporated. The twin thing is kicking in, and she feels lost. And Chesney's fairly useless in this regard, surprise, surprise. Bernie comes in, rushing around like a blue-arse fly, shocked that the quads are at school. Gemma invites her to look at some pics with her, but Bernie is too overcome and rushes out as quick as she rushed in. Right,
they're going to make her a cheese sandwich, and she's like, nope, no time. No time to eat cheese on bread, on toast.
So she rushes off to Nina's Rolls, where Todd once again tells her to speak to Billy about the funeral. Back at the flat, Billy continues to go on about his phone call to Paul, and Summer is clearly uncomfortable going along with it. Bernie arrives to talk about the funeral, but Billy can't do this now. He'd rather talk about Paul's response to his call. And Bernie lies and says it was smiling and peaceful. Summer clears her throat. Billy tries to make this Bernie's fault for telling him to go out the previous night. I've just lost my husband, Billy barks. And I've just lost my son, yells Bernie. And I've just lost that bloke that bought me a packet of crisps, says David.
Fuck off.
Todd pleads for calm, and Billy insists that he'll be taking care of the funeral and doesn't want Bernie's involvement. Todd again pleads for calm, but instead Billy throws everyone out.
Yeah, and Todd does this really interesting thing, and he's right, where he talks from experience about the two different kinds of funerals.
Yeah.
The ones that bring everyone together.
Yeah.
And the ones that tear the family apart.
Yeah. Punch up at a funeral is very common.
Yes.
Like a wedding.
Yes.
Anything that brings families together that aren't normally together.
Yeah.
Could go either way.
Yeah. And I thought that was That was really nice. It doesn't work,
No, but it's a nice thought.
but yeah.
On the way, Bernie mumbles that at least she got to say goodbye to Paul, and so that's Todd's tip-off that he finds out that Billy didn't really get a chance to say goodbye, that Paul had already died.
Well, here's the thing, Billy and Todd and everyone. The saying goodbye is not for the person who is dying. The saying goodbye is for the person who is continuing to live.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter whether or not they can hear you. You have said your goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the important thing.
Yeah. It also,
It's
at the end of the
also-
day, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
Anyway.
And it's also very weird, like Billy's obsession. Oh, was he smiling? Billy, he was dying.
Yeah.
He was dying. And you expect him to be smiling?
Giving you a thumbs up. Oh, thank fuck it's Billy.
He could barely smile at that point in his life anyway.
Right.
And you expect him to smile just hearing your voice as he's choking on his own lungs?
Mm-hmm.
What is wrong with you?
Bernie brings Gemma and Chesney up to speed and reckons that Paul kept his wishes brief because he didn't want anything religious in his funeral, and that's what Billy will make of it. The show remembers that Daniel and Dee Dee were flatmates with Paul, and they have a nice wee scene in the Rovers reminiscing. David finds Billy in the community garden, and they talk about tea. Billy has had a chance to reflect and actually thanks David. He's the reason Billy got to know Paul in the first place.
Yep.
Billy's sad that they never managed a year, and David thinks that this sounds like one of Gail's marriages. He tells Billy that it gets easier. Billy knows that Bernie will not want a religious funeral and talks about drive-through funerals in America that I was surprised at, but then Googled and, oh yeah, it is a thing.
America. USA.
Not only is it a thing,
USA,
it's a thing
USA.
in Michigan.
Yeah.
Yikes. He's determined they have drive-through viewings,
Right.
which is even worse, I think. Anyway.
Well, I think a lot of that started during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
When, you know.
Yes, it did. But I think it's continued.
Right. Yeah. Because believe it or not, folks, COVID's not over.
Billy is determined to give his husband a good Christian send-off. He goes back to the flat, unsurprised to see Bernie there. He knows he's been throwing people's kindness back in their faces and apologises to Bernie, and he finally allows Gemma and Summer to comfort him, and that is how we end this week's episode.
And yet Bernie does not comfort him.
No, the two of them are
And
very much still...
And I'm a little pissed off by this whole, oh, now we're going to make this story about religion. It feels inappropriate because, once again, folks, funerals are not for the dead person.
Mm-hmm.
Funerals are for the living people. So you'd think that they would be able to come together to something that would comfort both of them. And also, Paul's been baptized, so I'm sure he would have been fine. He wanted a Christian wedding.
Mm.
He's the one who forced the whole church wedding.
And they do remind Bernie of that.
Yeah. So it kind of feels more like not Paul's wishes, but Bernie's wishes. And it feels weird that Bernie would, at this point, take a stand against her. What is he now? Is he a deacon? Is he
He's
a pope?
He's the Pope.
He's the pope now.
Pope Billy.
Pope Billy. You know, God's his boss. So his boss has to be there.
Even if Paul hadn't had his come to Jesus moment, which I
Right.
think he did.
He did. In his way.
I think the fact that he's married to the Pope kind of means that God has to be involved
Right.
on some level
Yeah.
in the funeral.
As I said, God's Billy's boss.
It would look weird if it was just a humanist funeral
Right.
and the Pope's there.
Right.
That would look strange.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, your mother wasn't deeply religious, but there were still religious elements to her funeral. My former mother-in-law hadn't really been to church in a long time, but she still had a full Catholic mass. So it feels weird that the show is going to focus on this as a cause for conflict between Bernie and Billy. It's also weird that they've decided that Dev can't get a flight home. Isn't that weird?
I think that's just explaining why Jimmy's not in the show this week.
Yeah, but Jimmy should be in the show this week.
Yeah, it doesn't need another character, I don't think.
Yeah,
What I felt...
But if Jimmy was there, if Dev was there, then there would be somebody to stop Bernie and talk sense to her.
What we've got is two very different people experiencing grief.
Yes.
And remember, the first 24 hours.
Yes.
So, really, after the first 24 hours is gone, you can kind of write off anything that was said up to that point, because it's been said from a position of extreme emotional trauma.
And I seem to remember Paul talking about his funeral and wanting to arrange his funeral. And didn't he want something weird at his funeral? It feels like conversations about his funeral were had, because Paul seemed like he very much wanted to be in control about what happened to him. So for them to be like, oh, he didn't care. He didn't say what he wanted because he didn't want this, feels weird.
Yeah, I guess in the moment,
it feels...
you look for the person who's disagreeing with you, and you focus on that. So Bernie's got Billy from that point of view, and vice versa.
The fact that no paperwork had been done at the funeral home yet feels weird. Mm-hmm. You know?
And it also feels weird that Billy would not want Bernie's input.
Right. Just because he knows that she doesn't want anything religious. Well, you can have some non-sacred songs in the mix, Billy. You had sex out of wedlock. It's not like you're 100% in line with the boss all the time. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. It feels like a sketchy thing for the show to put as the rift between these two characters, especially since they don't seem to know what popes do anyway.
Well,
hi, Dan.
And let's remember that that Billy not getting to say goodbye is just going to exponentially make this situation worse.
Right. Yeah. But he doesn't know, and he doesn't have to know.
Isn't it strange, though, for an archdeacon, let's say he's an archdeacon.
Yes, he's not really the Pope.
To say, I'm never going to see him again.
Right. Yeah. Because
I think an important part of Christianity is
the fact that you're going to see your loved ones again. Yes. And it kind of implies maybe that he thinks Paul's in hell? Or that he all of a sudden he doesn't believe in the afterlife, because Summer says, I will see you again. Mm-hmm. And Gemma kind of implies to the quads, she talks about angels. And people don't technically turn into angels, and angels don't look like that anyway. But anyway, this is not that kind of a discussion. But the fact that Gemma seems to acknowledge some idea of heaven and of seeing your loved ones again.
She also talks about reincarnation.
Right. Which is fine.
So it's a little from column A and a little from column B. Whichever makes you get through the night.
And also,
Gemma.
how much do the quads understand about reincarnation?
Right.
So, it feels, again, the show doesn't know what an archdeacon does. They don't know what Christianity is. At times, it just feels really weird.
This is a time where Billy takes strength from his faith.
That's what he should be doing, yes.
Gets through this almost because he's got a foot up from everyone else.
Right. He should.
He should have the tools to help him get through this.
Yeah,
he's not displaying that, and that's a shocker for me.
Yes,
but
yeah. Well, Summer and Gemma do.
Right. If you think we're way off on this, if you think that this was done brilliantly, and let's all agree that no one's talking about the quality of the act, and we're talking about how this was told.
Right.
If that worked for you, then absolutely drop us a line and let us know. Disagree
And where they're trying to get drama here.
as much as you like at Corrie Podcast on all the socials. But yeah, for me, it just I think I enjoyed Friday more than Monday.
Yes.
Not that Monday was an episode to enjoy it as much, but I don't know. I felt like I was getting something, like you said at the start, when you see the grief in everyone's face and in their eyes. That had more of an impact to me than the actual passing of Paul.
And seeing the community grieve for this person.
Right.
Seeing Toyah and Leanne make chili. Seeing Dee Dee and Daniel laughing about stories about living with Paul. Seeing Billy and David talk about Paul and how David was the reason that Billy met Paul. And David talking about how he wouldn't have gotten through prison if Paul hadn't been there.
Yeah.
These sorts of things. Seeing grief on Dee Dee's face. Seeing grief on Todd's face. Seeing grief on David's face. Although that scene where David walks out and Bernie's walking by and she stops and looks at him, but she doesn't say anything to him, felt very weird.
Oh, maybe
That,
she's off the opinion that
That, they don't come together in their grief, So, and Friday, Kit's not in Friday.
Yeah.
We don't see, we.
He's not at the police station. He's not with Gemma.
We have yet to see Kit grieve for his brother. And that feels kind of weird.
Yeah. All right, that was the week that was Coronation Street.
Yes.
Hey, Helen. Hey, tell me.
What's up?
What was your moment of the week?
It's not really a moment of the week, but it's got to be Paul dying, yes?
Yeah, I think the culmination of 18 months of story is worth an awful lot. Mm-hmm. And it's sad to see Paul go. I mean,
it is.
Regardless of how well or otherwise the storyline was executed, it's still a big moment in the show.
Right. And this is a character we both really enjoyed from his introduction on.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because we've been here.
He was a cheeky chappy from the start.
We've been here for Paul's entire story.
Mm-hmm.
Which feels really weird.
Yeah, it does.
But it's true. And we also really like Peter Ash. The work that he and Daniel Brocklebank have done for MND and really kind of being present in that community and everything, I think has really added an extra layer to this whole storyline that I've really appreciated.
We can talk about some issue storylines that are pulled from the headlines or whatever, but this feels like it was an issue storyline that has done an awful lot of good work to raise awareness of this terrible disease.
Yeah.
So, that's our
Moment of the week.
Your boring moment of the week. Kirk wondering why his great-great-grandfather died in the war.
See, I kind of found that funny.
Oh, get to fuck with that. Hurry up and be depressed, Kirk. That's what we're waiting for.
The whole, he was fine one day and the next he was dead. Oh, well, what did he do? He was a fighter pilot.
Yeah, George's face. Seriously.
I found that amusing.
All right, then. Well, what's your boring moment of the week then?
God, you know what? I can't really think of one. I was gonna say Ken's massage gun, but we don't actually get to see her use it on him, which is sad. Somebody must have said something boring. I mean, Daniel and Chesney were in it this week, and Ken. I can't think of anything. No boring moment of the week this week. All good. Not enough episode for a boring moment of the week.
Oh, that's Kirk then.
Wednesday was our boring moment of the week. No, because I laughed at that. That was the first time I've laughed at a Kirk joke. I laughed at that. So it wasn't boring. I found it funny.
The fact that we don't have a boring moment of the week is our...
Boring moment of
Wednesday was our boring moment of the week.
Wednesday wasn't boring. Wednesday was boring.
Wednesday was boring because we didn't get any Corrie.
There we go. That'll do. Now, as is tradition, after this week's episodes have finished airing, I ask our Twitter followers what they thought of the week in Corrie, and it's been very positive lately, and it continued to be so. Our Z was 17.6%, our Meh was 21.6%, and our Yay was 60.8%. Not quite as resounding
interesting.
as last week, but still,
Yeah, very interesting.
but still exceptionally positive.
Kind of sounds like maybe some other people agree with us.
Now, of course, Helen, we don't let that sway our opinion. So tell me, what is your score out of 10?
I'm going to go with an 8. Because despite the fact that I had issues with the main storyline of the week, you know, I thought everybody did a smashing job. And you know, one of my complaints about the whole Rowan storyline kind of being shoved in there this week
But not like that.
was the fact that I thought that those scenes were really good. Leanne kind of pulling the wool over Rowan's eyes and everything.
That was kind of obvious, though, wasn't it?
Well, it was obvious to us, but it wasn't obvious to him, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the fact that he finally says what he really thinks of Leanne, and she's like, womp womp, and everybody
Switcheroo.
else crashes in, like
Yep.
they're all ITV Stefan.
And they all shout, wop wop. Yeah, I think I'd give it an 8 as well. It wasn't done the way I would want it,
Right.
but what do I know? I'm just a guy with an opinion.
What?
And you know,
A straight white guy with an opinion? That never happened.
they aren't as valuable as they used to be. Let's put it that way. See, I think it's reasonable, and a farewell to Paul and to Peter Ash. I hope Peter Ash goes on to other great things. I'm sure he will.
Absolutely.
All right, let's wrap this one up then. This episode was brought to you with thanks to our friends of the podcast: Daisy, French Helen, Pickles, DT, Trisha, Wendy, Noel, Canadian Helen, Christy, Shandy, English Victoria, Aurora Yvonne, Heather Westerfield, Russell Whiting, Jackie B, Brittany Porter, Loriana, and Tina. Thank you all so very much, folks. We really do appreciate it. If you've ever wondered why your great-great-grandfather died in the war, write in to tell us about it. We are the Talk of the Street at gmail.com, and we're at Corrie Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads and Blue Sky, or reach us the old-fashioned way, the Talk of the Street, P.O. Box 12, Eaton Rapids, Michigan, 48827. I do enjoy saying that. You can shout me and Helen a coffee or become a friend of the podcast by heading to ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/the Talk of the Street or patreon.com/the Talk of the Street. Check out voggle.co.uk for links to our merch store, YouTube channel and blog. And if you're so inclined, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes or your podcast provider of choice. And be sure to check out our pop culture sister podcast, The List of Lists.
We didn't do one this week because I am very, very tired.
Thanks for making it to the end of another episode. And we will be back next week with more
Talk of the Street.
Talk of the Street, y'all.
Bye.
Cheerio.